things the ITDRC does, and the main thing is we restore communications to critical infrastructure, first responders, and also the public as a whole. When we got here in October, obviously, so it was much more different than it is now. You know, Puerto Rico's been recovering. A lot of the facilities that we worked with when I first got here was things like hospitals, police stations, EMS dispatch, and mental health facilities also, because we worked on a project that helped address the growing mental health needs that came up after Maria. Technology, we don't realize how reliant we are on it until it's gone. And I mean, we've all had interruptions, you know, in network connectivity and things like that, and it seems like it's a minor annoyance. But once you start going past a few days, then you start realizing how much it is affecting, especially in healthcare with electronic health record management systems. They're very dependent on having connectivity and using technology to achieve that connectivity. And, you know, all the way down to phones. I mean, a lot of things now, it's all network-based. So a lot of the copper lines, you know, for normal analog, plain old telephone system lines were destroyed, but without network connectivity, you can't use voice over IP, you know, which is very common now. So, I mean, the lack of technology and the crippling of the actual communication infrastructure was critical. I mean, there's a lot of things that cannot be accomplished with that, especially here in Puerto Rico and with a lot of the places in the mainland United States too. 911 dispatch, they have a system that's used to handle that. And now here in Puerto Rico, the actual 911 dispatch center remained up. The problem that you had is people couldn't contact them necessarily. And then once they did contact them, if they were able to, then the actual dispatch center has to relay that information to the first responders, whether it's going to be the police, OME, or ambulance. And some of those sites were completely cut off and you couldn't get a hold of them. So you could dial 911, maybe, and if you got a hold of dispatch, they would have to get the information out to someone to help you. And that wasn't always possible. So there was a lot of sites we reconnected to where they could respond to those calls. When it comes to call for code, there is definitely a lot of potential when it comes to, on like the software side and programming and things like that. Obviously, you know, one of the issues that was had was actually like filling out claim forms and things like that, and that's preferred to be done online. If you're submitting information for disaster relief over paper, you know, paper gets lost. There might be mandatory fields, you know, on a form that someone skips because, you know, if you're using a pen, you can just skip over that, whereas if you have like an online form or database, it can validate those inputs and everything. So an improperly filled out form or a lost form, that person doesn't get relief. So I think that's definitely something that could come in handy from that perspective, is actually cataloging of information and the submission of information from the community. Another big thing that we saw, GIS, geospatial data, and aggregating data and actually being able to map it and analyze it. Here in Puerto Rico, it's not exactly like it is back in the mainland when it comes to addresses and things like that. It is in rural areas, but it's not like street name, house number, and sometimes actually finding locations is difficult. And so I know a lot of people has actually been working with geospatial data and actually, you know, cataloging of homes and things like that. And land record management was an issue down here with some people, I know, when it came to doing their FEMA claims and things like that. So just aggregating of that kind of data and finding a proper way to house it, you know, search it and actually make it actionable intelligence, because the information's there, but it's not necessarily in a very easy to use format. It's very hard to say there's anything good, you know, about a disaster like this. I mean, no one wants to see that or see people go through that. But, I mean, you can always try to be optimistic, and one of the things that I've seen is just the resiliency, you know, of the people here in Puerto Rico, and the willingness to say, okay, we're going to improve, we're going to make ourselves more resilient, because unfortunately, we can't say if it happens again. It's going to be when it happens again. It might not be in our lifetime. It might not be in my lifetime. It might not be in your lifetime. But Puerto Rico's going to go through this again at one point. And The hope is that it's not as damaging and they'll be more resilient and be able to recover from it faster and properly mitigate some of those hazards.